experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Friends, how's it going? I'm Henrik Kuto, and this is the inaugural episode of Weekly Spooky. And what better time to start the show than, well, not Halloween like I originally promised, but actually the day before Halloween. Because our first story is called Mischief Night. So I had to release it on Mischief Night because I'm a stickler for tradition. When the tradition's fun, otherwise I could give a crap. But Halloween has lots of fun traditions. I mean, it's the time of year, supposedly, when the barrier between the living and the dead is permeable. Yeah, we can cross between. Now, of course, the living can cross into the dead barrier very easily, but of course it's not very pleasant and often quite messy. But the dead being able to come back and walk the streets, that's why we wear costumes. We want to fit in. We don't want to stand out as the living among the dead because maybe they'll grab us as when we're children and take us back with them to the land of the dead. Ooh, I just gave myself goosebumps, which is, by the way, the entire point of this show. So I just can't wait to tell you the story. So we're going to get into it right now, and I hope it helps you get into your Halloween spirit. And after the story, I'll hang out and jaw with you a little bit more, maybe about Halloween, maybe about who knows what. But for right now, let's start the story. Mischief Night by Shane Migliavacca. Ray had a bad feeling in his gut. Bud had a sinister look in his eye tonight. It was Bud's idea they go out. There was an unreasonably cold chill to this October night. Most likely the reason the trick-or-treaters were starting to thin out. Bud wanted to do some trick-or-treating of his own. Ray knew Bud long enough to know that meant some kind of crime would be perpetrated by them tonight. Bud swung a beat-up paper sack back and forth as they walked. When Ray had asked, Bud told him only that it was a surprise. Ray didn't like his friend's surprises all that much, but without him, Ray would never have made it this far in life. His mother was an out-of-work nurse, his dad a foreman at a chemical plant. Stuck home with a kid and a husband that was never around, she took her frustrations out on Ray, smacking him around. His dad, too busy and too tired from long shifts, failed to notice or care. When he was 15, Ray ran away from home. Those first few years had been harder than hell. He'd resorted to things he'd never thought he was capable of. Then he met Bud. A former runaway himself, they were kindred spirits. Bud knew his way around the streets. Ray owed him. No matter what the man did, he wouldn't desert him. Not to mention, he was more than a little afraid of him. A kid in a skeleton costume bounded down the sidewalk towards them, happily clutching a full bag of candy in his arms. As he passed by, Bud stuck out a leg, sending the kid crashing to the sidewalk, his bag of candy landing next to him, some of the candy spilling onto the sidewalk and lawn. The kid started blubbering as he rubbed his knee. Bud knelt down and looked at the kid. "Did you have a nice trip, kid?" The kid shook his head back and forth. "You tripped me." "Maybe you're just clumsy, kid," Bud laughed. He snatched up the kid's bag of candy. "Hey, that's mine," the kid hollered. "Give it back." There was a flash of steel. Bud held out a switchblade he carried. "Shh," he whispered. Ray felt his heart quicken. What was Bud gonna do to this kid? He'd never seen him hurt a kid. Could he go that far? Kill a kid? "Listen, kid," Bud said. "This is my candy now. Mine. You tell anybody about it, your parents, a cop, anybody, and I'll make you watch as I kill 'em. 'Cause I'm the boogeyman, and I know where you live. Got it?" The kid, near tears, more than likely pissing his pants, nodded. "Good. Now run the fuck along, and don't talk to fucking strangers." The kid hightailed it as Bud laughed, sniffing the air as he looked at Ray. "I think that kid shit his pants. Or was it you?" "Fuck," Ray managed. "Fuck, man." This made Bud laugh louder, handing the bag of ill-gotten candy to Ray. "Have some." Shaking his head, Ray reached into the bag, grabbing a small bag of Sour Patch Kids. "What are we doing out here tonight, man?" He popped a red Sour Patch into his mouth. "Besides mugging little kids." "Well, my man, I want to do something more adult than trick-or-treating." Bud motioned to the houses up and down the street. "Pick one. Pick a good one, and we'll have ourselves some fun." Ray let his eyes wander over the houses. Nice upper-middle-class homes, some decorated to the hilt for Halloween, others bore nothing at all. One house in particular, a large Grim Reaper, stood on the lawn, his eyes glowing. A witch stood next to him, cackling at a passerby. Purple, orange, and green lights decorated the house's exterior. A large glowing ghost hung on the front door, loudly wailing at little kids as they walked up to the front door. "That one," Ray pointed. Bud nodded in approval. A pretty brunette answered the door, handing out candy to the little kids waiting there. "Good choice." Amanda followed the outline on the construction paper, a detailed drawing of a skeleton grinning at her. She'd always been pretty good at drawing. Cutting things with scissors was another thing. Next to her, Amanda's little brother Kyle coughed as he colored in a pumpkin she'd drawn earlier. They sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by snacks and colored paper. What a drag, stuck at home on Halloween night looking after her sick kid brother. Her parents were off to have dinner and then a movie. She was missing Stevie Lee's big Halloween party at the Mill Creek Farms. She'd just got her driver's license and barely got to use it. Why couldn't her parents cancel? Why'd it have to be her? She looked at her brother. It sucked for him, too. He'd really been looking forward to trick-or-treating tonight. Instead, they were stuck home together. Both of them had gotten bored watching horror movies on TV. She decided maybe making something would lift their spirits. "The Horror-a-thon will be back with Night of the Killer Lobsters after a word from our ghoulish sponsors," the television played in an empty living room. The ghost hanging on the front door wailed, breaking Amanda's thoughts. The scissors slipped, causing her to poke her thumb. "Oh, shit," she hollered. "You okay?" Kyle asked. "Yeah, you didn't hear me swear, right?" He gave her a thumbs up. There was a loud knock at the door. "Want me to get it?" her brother asked. Amanda stood, holding the scissors in one hand. "I'll get it." There was another loud knock. "Coming! Coming!" Amanda shouted over the ghost's howl. "Hold your fucking horses," she said under her breath. "Look," a man warned on television. "There's one of them now," as a lobster superimposed over the side of a car, menacing some kids in Lover's Lane. Walking past an upright piano set against one wall, setting the scissors on the coffee table, Amanda picked up her mom's large ceramic bowl. According to her, it was some family heirloom. A red drop hit the beige carpet. "Shit," Amanda growled, looking at the trail of blood drops on the carpet behind her. She hadn't thought the scissors had broke the skin of her thumb. Now she'd have to get bloodstains out of the carpet before Mom and Dad get home. What next? There was another furious knock. Yeah, she said, this time not even trying to hide her annoyance. The pile-up of the night's events getting to her. So much so Amanda forgot to look through the window to see who was out there first. Something she always did. Unlocking the door, she yanked it open. 2 men in plastic clown masks stood, waiting. Amanda stood, hesitating. "Tricker." The rest of it was cut off as the closer of the 2 men drove a fist into her stomach, knocking the air out of her lungs and doubling her over. Mom's precious heirloom hitting the floor, shattering, sending candy spilling over the floor. Before she could recover, strong hands shoved her back into the living room, the 2 men rushing in after her. The second man closes the door, locking it and turning off the lights. Amanda tries to stand, earning another punch to the stomach from the first man. "We good?" he asks. The second peeks out through the curtains. "Golden," he answered, keeping watch through the drawn curtains. Amanda staggered, hunched over, barely able to gasp for air, much less form words. She wanted to warn her brother, scream out for help. Anything. The first man grabbed her by the hair, yanking her head up so they were face to face. His gloved hand touched her cheek. In his other, he held a switchblade. You alone, girlie? Yeah, she gasped. What's a looker like you doing all alone on Halloween night? I was grounded, she managed, tears burning her eyes. That's so. Wouldn't be lying, would you? Don't have a boyfriend stashed somewhere? Maybe a girlfriend? You know what they say, when the cat's away, the mice'll play. You playin', pretty mouse? Amanda coughed. No. Too bad, he lamented. Gonna behave? Yes, please, take whatever and go, she pleaded. The first man picked up the family portrait sitting on the mantel. God, she hoped Kyle had heard everything and run and hid. Or maybe he'd run out the kitchen door, heading to one of the neighbors for help. He was a smart kid, it was possible. Who says we want to take anything? He answered. Where's Junior here? He said, tapping on the picture. He went with my parents, trick-or-treating, Amanda answered. Did he now? Her watery eyes wandered the room. Not too far away sat the scissors on the coffee table. So far, all she'd seen was the guy's knife. No guns. If she could reach the scissors... The man chuckled loudly. She met his eyes. He'd seen her looking at the scissors. Amanda lunged, leaping towards the scissors. Don't think so, first man said, cutting her off with another punch. Amanda staggered and fell to her knees, the world fading in and out of blackness as the carpet came rushing up to meet her as she fell. Ray saw the girl go down in a flash, turning away from the window when he heard the commotion. She hit the carpeted floor and went limp. Bud knelt down, checking the girl. Out like a light, he stood, motioning Ray over. I'll stay here with the princess. I want you to check the place out. They gotta have something valuable stashed here. Mommy might have some jewelry, or Daddy might have some cash squirreled away. Check the bedrooms first. Okay, man. Then we can get out of here, Ray said. Her parents could be back any time. Go, find something good, Bud said. And if you see somebody, a boyfriend or the brat, he drew a finger across his throat. I'll entertain myself while I wait, he smiled. Ray nodded before leaving. God, he'd be happy when they were out of there. When he could take off the crummy mask, he was sweating like crazy. Besides the mask, Ray was scared. Bud was really on a rip tonight. He knew what Bud was going to do with the girl, and he wanted no part of it. The fear in his bones of what Bud might do to even him stopped Ray from helping the girl. Best he could do was find some shit so they could get the hell out of there. Heading upstairs, Ray searched as quick as he could. A bathroom, the boys' bedroom, then the girls'. Nothing. At least there was no boyfriend waiting up here. No little brother playing in his room either. That left the parents' bedroom. Fuck, he hoped there was something valuable there. He feared what Bud's reaction would be if he came back empty-handed. He dumped the dresser drawers. Clothes, a dildo, and some papers. Bills, mostly. Zip for anything worth a shit. Looked like the closet was it. Come on, fucks, he said to himself. You're killing me here. Opening the sliding closet door, lots of clothes, mostly the mother's. The shelf was crammed full of stuff, but there was one thing that stood out. A metal box. Bingo. He reached up, pulling it down. A box of pictures fell, spilling on the floor. Holding the heavy box in his arms, Ray saw something that made his heart stop. A little kid hiding in the corner of the closet, huddled behind some of the clothes. The kid's eyes widened when he met Ray's gaze. Ray put a finger to his lips. Not a word, kid, he whispered. He knelt, setting the box on the floor, staring at the kid. What the fuck was he gonna do? If he brought the kid downstairs, Bud would kill him for sure. Ray had a fairly good idea of what Bud was probably up to now with the girl. Even if Bud let the brat live, there was no reason to subject him to seeing that. Reaching into his back pocket, Ray pulled out his own knife, looking into the kid's terrified eyes. Ray recognized what he saw there. How many times he had looked up with those same eyes at his mom as she beat the piss out of him. No, he couldn't kill the kid. I want you to stay here, he whispered. Me and my buddy are going soon. Don't come out of here till somebody comes and gets you, okay? The kid nodded. Good, Ray said. He clapped a hand over the kid's mouth. One more thing. Don't worry. I ain't gonna hurt you. It'll just sting a little. Ray drew the blade out down the kid's cheek, opening up a small cut. The kid squirmed, wanting to holler in pain, Ray's hand suppressing the cry. Done. Ray dabbed some of the blood from the cut on his blade. He wasn't taking any chances. If Bud thought he'd killed the kid, that should keep him from wanting to look for the kid. Picking up one of the father's t-shirts from the floor, Ray wadded it up and handed it to the kid, telling him to press it to his cheek. Closing the closet again, Ray picked up the metal box, setting it on the bed. Using a solid metal ashtray, he smashed off the flimsy padlock. Inside the box, it was like Christmas morning had come early. Jewelry and a couple of envelopes of cash. Score. Picking up his prize, Ray headed downstairs. Amanda heard gentle music playing over the screams of terror coming from the television. She felt the softness of the rug against her back. Her body ached, and she wasn't sure why. Her eyes focused on the man playing the piano. Amanda saw the clown mask, and reality came crashing back. The last things she remembered was trying to grab the scissors and then nothing. Save for scattershot images, the man over her, the sounds of fabric tearing. Oh God. She rolled over onto her belly. The other man came rushing in, excited and holding the metal box from her parents' closet. The first man opened it, letting out a jubilant hoot. She couldn't hear their words over the frenzy on the TV. Words or no words, Amanda knew what the blood on the other man's knife meant, as he showed it to the first. Ray bounded down the stairs, eager to show Bud the loot. Somebody was playing music, a piano or something. In the living room, Bud sat at the small piano, playing without a care in the world. The girl lay on the carpet, her clothes shredded. He knew what Bud had in mind for the girl. He could have... No, best not to dwell on it. There was nothing he could have done. They were almost out of there anyway. He showed him the contents of the box, and then the knife. Good work, Bud said, looking at Ray's bloody knife. You're a man now. He motioned towards the girl. Want some? Can we just get out of here? Ray asked. Fine. I'm getting restless anyway. Bud stood, tickling the piano keys. A wail of anguish and rage rose up over the piano, over the screams on the television. The men turned to see a bloodied, beaten banshee standing before them, the scissors in her hands. The girl's expression was filled with so much hate. Ray felt shivers run up and down his spine. She lunged. Ray felt the hot spray hit his face. Blood. Not his, though. He looked over to see the scissors pulling away from Bud's neck, a large, bloody hole left in their wake. Bud tumbled over the piano bench, gurgling up blood as he desperately tried to stop it from jetting out of his neck, fastening his hands over the wound, blood flowing between his fingers. Standing there, petrified, Ray couldn't help but watch his friend squirm about on the carpet floor, the girl jamming Bud repeatedly in the groin with the scissors. The knife slipped from his fingers. The girl turned from the now dead Bud, her eyes bloodshot. She howled with anger. Please, Ray begged, his body finally responding. He ran towards the door, slipping on the spilled candy inches from his goal. He grabbed a large, jagged shard of the broken candy bowl, slicing his gloved hand, swinging at the crazed girl, cutting her arm. The pain didn't faze her as she plunged the scissors into Ray's right eye socket with a sickening crunch. Frenzied, Ray pushed her away, fumbling for the door lock. The only thought in his dying brain was to get away, but his fingers couldn't seem to manage the lock. Ray heard the girl breathing behind him, pulling the scissors from his eye socket. He blindly sliced the air with them. The crazed girl crouched, watching him, till finally his body gave out, and he collapsed against the door. It was hard to believe the girl, her face covered with a blank white mask, was his sister. Kyle visited her from time to time at the sanitarium. He was 16 now, the same age she'd been when it happened. He touched the scar on his cheek, a constant reminder of that night. Amanda sat there in the day room, staring out the window, never moving. her head never turning. Dr. Chandler said she was near catatonic. The mask, he said, she'd started wearing to hide her shame. After that man found him in the closet, Kyle had stayed hidden, staying there till his parents had found him. Amanda had believed the man killed him. Perhaps she still did. The doctors were afraid to let him talk to her. The first time had been a disaster. He blamed himself for what happened to her, even though his parents, the cops, and his shrink told him there was nothing he could have done. He'd only been a scared little boy. Sometimes he dreamed about her. Not of that night, no. He dreamed of her escaping here, finding her way over his bed, a pair of bloody scissors in her hand. He watched her for a while. She was so unnaturally patient, gazing out that window, staring into the distance, waiting. Ooh, how about that? We got a little taste of a John Carpenter's Halloween style ending right there. That's the kind of terror that gives me chills because it's believable. When ordinary people are put in extraordinary situations, sometimes they rise to the test, and sometimes they never come back. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the first story on Weekly Spooky, and if you're curious about the author, please check out the show notes, and you can find out some more. Every week, we bring you a short, scary story, whether it's something we've generated ourselves or something we've been contributed. So if you have a scary story you want to share with us to maybe be read on Weekly Spooky, you can email us at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And I would be happy to take a look at the story and tell you what I think. We prefer stories around 2,000 to 5,000 words in that range. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought that was a really cool, creepy story. I love narrating scary stories. It's something I have been passionate about for a while, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to lean into it via podcast. So I hope it gave you some chills. I hope it gave you some thrills, and I hope you'll tune in next week. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, give us a rating. It really helps people find us. This is the first official episode, but I guarantee you I will be coming at you every week with something really, really spooky. Now, as for myself, Henrik Kuto, I am mostly known as a filmmaker, mostly in the horror genre, with films such as Babysitter Massacre, or Ouija Room, which is about to come out, or Devil's Trail. You can find a lot of those films if you just Google a little bit. But I love all things spooky, and that's what's kind of brought me here to chat with you. So at the end of every episode, I'll hang out like this and tell you a little bit about what's going on. But right now, what's really going on is please subscribe and share and get scared. That's really what it comes down to, my friends. I just want as many people to listen to this as possible. If you love this show and you really want to support it, we do have a Patreon. Now, the Patreon is for all of the many non-feature film endeavors I do. I do a television show called Popcorn Fodder where I show weird, bizarre movies and talk about them. Yeah, I know, right? Apparently, I just want to talk. I also do photography and Weekly Spooky. So if you want to go to if you want to check us out, go to weeklyspooky.com, and you can find a link to the Patreon right there. We also have merchandise, t-shirts, hats, cool things like that. Wow, that rhymed, and that wasn't even on purpose. That is how you know I'm a professional. A professional. I like how I stumbled over the word professional. That's beautiful work. Beautiful work. But anyway, I'm going to take off, but I want to mention Weekly Spooky is produced by Dan Wilder, and the music is by the lovely and talented Ray Mattis. He is a boss music-making machine. I'm Henrik Kuto, and I will talk at you later.